Put your hands in there. Yes, put your hands in there. Squeeze her.
What in the absolute freaking nonsense is happening in the world where people are literally covering themselves in plastic in order to greet and be with their loved ones and relatives? Holy freaking cow. Newborns are being masked. Some parents are putting plastic bags over kids' heads, while of course the President of the United States gets to live his best life and ignore the same mask ridiculous policies that he implemented. Highlighting once again, do as I say, not as I do, as perfectly represented by our current times. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Luke Radowski here of WeAreChange.org. Oh boy, do we have a very serious situation on our hands, not just here in the United States, but all over the world, as the global supply chain has been hit. And from the looks of it, it's going to continue to be hit after, of course, there are massive clashes with the citizenry and their government trying to impose their will onto them. And we're going to get into that plus a lot more, all on this independent media organization. Now, a lot of this tomfoolery, a lot of this ridiculousness, a lot of this playtext sanitizing theater could, of course, be blamed by the chief apostle of this lunacy. And that, of course, is Dr. Fauci, that recently declared on a Fox News show that people who don't like him are, quote, conspiracy theorists that deny reality. Yes, adding on and saying, quote, sometimes the truth becomes inconvenient for some people, so they react against me. That just is what it is. Wow, very declarative, almost guilty statement from someone who has literally been flip-flopping on every single one issue from the very beginning of this, not being able to give a coherent message or explain some of the very serious hypocritical duplicities in his policies that many medical professionals have pointed out to be extremely political and many times absolutely nonsensical. But hey, that's the current reality we are living in, where literally the ACLU is preparing to argue that the First Amendment needs to be restricted because it is interpreted, quote, too broadly by the courts, as they are literally arguing for less speech to be allowed. This, of course, was pointed out by Glenn Greenwald, who also said that currently one of the ACLU's most prominent lawyer is literally arguing that books should be banned and that this was a hill that they would die on. This, as the organization is fighting in court to force teachers to use specific pronouns for students in schools. And as speech becomes more limited by the day, as the government police state gets bigger, all of this, as allegedly this letter is going around telling Canadian government employees and diplomats to avoid and not say the term "Let's go, Brandon," as the Canadian authorities are decreeing that it is now banned by the Canadian Public Services. And now, any guy named Brandon in the Canadian government sadly can't ever be cheered on now, allegedly. And of course, as the list of things that we cannot say, we cannot talk about grows almost every single day, not just if you're a part of the Canadian government, but also if you're here on this platform, we wanted to remind you that there still are some virtual safe havens where you can express and say whatever you want without any fear of censorship. And one of those platforms is, of course, Uncensored.com. We have a lot of things to talk about, especially Colin Powell, which Facebook is tagging when it comes to the announcement of his death. There's a lot of things to uncover there. There's a lot of videos of police officers resigning. We're going to be playing that specifically later on today with an additional video that will only be available to subscribers. T-shirts, giveaways, tickets to real-life events, all of that, plus a real and honest conversation is all available on LukeUncensored.com. Click the link if you haven't yet, and I hope to see you there later on today. Now, I think it's fair to say that things here in the United States are definitely ratcheting up, not just politically, not just socially, but of course also economically, as there's a lot of people protesting for their bodily autonomy, for their right to choose what is right for them, and of course pushing back against a lot of big government mandates that essentially create a domestic permission slip passport system that, according to many people living in this country, is un-American. This is scenes from a protest that happened in Texas from airline employees, and luckily the protests so far have been very peaceful, very civil, and cordial, which is saying a lot, especially to the scenes unfolding in the rest of the world, where protests have took a turn for the worse, and there have been many clashes between citizenry and government forces. The video that you're seeing right now is, of course, from Italy, a country that has implemented some of the most strictest domestic passport systems that, of course, totally allow the government to control almost every aspect of your existence. The agenda has been pushed further and quicker in Italy than most places around the world, and in response to this, a lot of people are answering back. Specifically, a lot of workers' union who have been blocking the ports at major transportation routes, which have caused police officers to use tear gas and water cannons on their citizenry. And of course, this is the first day of a new, very restrictive policy by the Italian government that is preventing people from working in the private or public sector unless they get the proper authority to work and given permission by the government to do so after doing a compliance test surrounding a procedure that some people can't take, while some refuse to do it. Now, as the clashes grow and expand in places like France, Australia, and Italy, in Sweden, people are living in relative harmony, as of course the government there has removed essentially all mandates, all lockdowns, all restrictions. Virtually everything has opened up without any middleman, without any intervention, without any need for government permission. And 16 days after just doing so, their number of infections have actually gone down. You compare what's happening in New York and Florida. New York, which now has more than double the rate of new infections per 100,000 people. Then, of course, Florida. New York, of course, implementing mandates, lockdowns, domestic passport systems, while Florida is not doing any of those things. What in the world is happening here when we have government intervention to the point that's leading to more cases? Like the graph here highlighting the situation in Singapore now after implementing some of the most strictest domestic passport systems. What's going on here? Well, I don't know. I'm not a medical professional, I'm not a doctor, but it's not just the correlation of more government, more cases that is worrying here. Biggest aspects to really consider here is the damage being done financially. As of course the top billionaires of this world are richer than they ever have been in the history of the world. Meanwhile, everyone else is absolutely being obliterated and robbed blind of their wealth. All of this will be exacerbated as we're hearing about the global supply chain chaos just starting, and according to CNBC, only about to get a lot worse. Something, of course, that we have been telling you and warning you about since the beginning of this entire saga. And what is the government doing to virtually shutting down global trade before, as the larger ramifications and problems of it are going to be impacting us very soon? Well, they're making it that much worse, as we had an announcement by the Deputy Secretary of Wally Adeyemo, who figuratively is blackmailing the American public by announcing that the supply chain crisis will only be fixed if everyone takes the medical procedure that he wants them to take. Yes, this was an official announcement by the department secretary on ABC News, saying we need more restrictions, which have already hurt global trade because of the restrictions that they imposed. But hey, that's at least a little bit more of a coherent message than, of course, we're getting from the U.S. Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, while, of course, global transportation of goods and services are at a standstill, which will create irreversible harm and damage, not just to the economy, but to the average, everyday human being that will be absolutely wiped out by this travesty of injustice, travesty of too much government, which is directly to blame from all of this. California, by the way, passed new emissions laws that they're implementing on many of the ships and trucks, which is exacerbating this problem that much worse, as they're implementing a lot of these regulations to, quote, cut smog, with huge negative effects on the supply chains, which exacerbate the already existing government mandates, lockdowns, passport systems, quarantine demands on foreign trade, all because of a sickness that it looks like they're using as an excuse to absolutely shut down and destroy the economy. Again, many truckers have to get new trucks. Many ships can't dock because of green policies passed by California. All of this as the administration is focused on you taking a procedure that is supposed to protect you from a sickness that Colin Powell took 2 doses of and then died from that sickness. Yeah, lots to say about here. We're going to be saving a lot of this particular segment that I really want to expand on for LukeUncensored.com. That video will be coming out later on today. We notify everyone that's signed up on our email list that these videos are out. And yeah, I have a lot to say. But currently the situation doesn't look good. It doesn't look promising, especially financially. Things are about to hit the fan, and they're about to hit the fan mainly because of government intervention, not the sickness. It's a big misnomer to say, oh, the sickness caused this. No. Almost every step of the way, almost as if it was deliberate. Some people do believe it is deliberate. The government has intervened in a way that has disrupted the free exchange of commerce. What will be the long-term ramifications of that? I believe devastating. That's my personal opinion. What do you think? Let me know down in the comment section below, especially if you think I'm wrong. If you dislike this video, click the dislike button. If you liked it, click the like button. I got a lot more to say, and I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.